This week's video exploration will help you understand 3 more sources on the subject of tsar now that you've seen the sugya on tsar. The first is from the Mishneh Torah, which is a source we've looked at before. You'll probably remember that it was written by the Rambam. And this is also from his laws of injury, of personal injury. Kama hu hatzar. The Rambam asks, how much is paid for tsar? Hakol lefi hanizak. Everything is according to the person who is injured. Yesh adam shehu rach ve'anog me'od, u'ba'al mamon. There are people who are kind of soft or weak and pampered, and they have a lot of money. V'ilu natnu mamon harbeh, lo haya mitzte'er ma'at. And even if you give them a lot of money, they wouldn't accept even a small amount of pain. V'yesh adam shehu amlan ve'chazak ve'ani. And there are people who are kind of hard workers, they're tough, they're strong, and they're poor. And even for just a single coin, they would be willing to accept a lot of pain. And based on those factors, you estimate and evaluate and decide on the tsar payment. This is a factor that we did not see raised in our Gemara. This is something that the Rambam adds. Chances are that his source is actually in the Talmud Yerushalmi, which often has parallel but different sugyot to the Bavli. So this is an interesting element that the Rambam adds. Ketzad misha'arin hatzar b'makom shechisro ever. How do we evaluate tsar in a place where actually a limb was also cut off? Harei shekataya deo o etzba'o. In a case where a person's hand or finger was cut off, omdim kama adam kazeh rotze liten bein liktoa lo ever ze b'saif o liktoa oto basam. This is the solution that we found in the Gemara to the question that we found in the Gemara. When there's also nezek, and tsar is part of that nezek, how do you assess it? So what you do is you ask a person, you evaluate how much a similar person would want to give to avoid the pain of having their hand cut off with a knife, if the alternative was that their hand was going to be cut off painlessly with some kind of drug, if the king had decreed that that was what was going to happen. So like the Gemara, you're for sure going to lose your hand anyway, and the only question is how much would you pay to have that happen painlessly. And you figure out how much that is, and that's how much the mazik pays, and that's how you assess the tsar payment. That's the Rambam's perspective. The next source that I brought you is from the Rosh. The Rosh, if you haven't learned his material before, is Rabbeinu Asher ben Yechiel. He was born in Germany, he died in Spain, and his commentary appears in the back of the Vilna Shas. So if you have a standard printed Gemara that you use for class, you'll be able to find the Piskei HaRosh in the back. Omdim kama adam kayotze b'zeh rotze litol lihiyot mitzte'er kach. This is the quote from the Gemara. ואמרו בגמרא, דצר במקום נזק, כגון היכא דקטינן לידי, דלא אמרינן כמה אדם רוצה ליטול לקטוע לידו. And the Gemara says that we're talking about tsar at a time when there's also damage, like in a situation where the person's hand is cut off. And we can't evaluate, right? We don't try to evaluate how much a person would want to get to have their hand cut off. Deshuma she'in la sofu. Because that would be an endless kind of sum of money to evaluate. In other words, no one could imagine a high enough number. If you say, how much would you pay, how much would I have to pay you to allow me to chop off your hand? They might say $1 million, and then you'll say, okay, great, and then they'll say, no, just kidding, 2 million. It's an endless kind of thing. Because a person is just not going to take money to sell their hand to be cut off. We won't go into that, the way that that's learned out, but this is a pasuk from the Torah, and he says we learn from this pasuk that you're supposed to be lenient in these kinds of evaluations. So when you're approximating how much money a person has to pay, we don't want to try to evaluate the highest possible amount. And if we actually asked a person, how much money would we have to pay you to get your hand chopped off, that would be a huge, endless sum of money. Ve'af yado shehi muchtevet l'malchut, and even a person whose hand has been decreed upon by the authorities, l'kot'a b'sam ein omrim kama adam rotze litol sheikte'ena b'sayif. And if the hand was decreed upon to be cut off with a drug, we don't say how much the person would take to have it cut off with a knife. Tzigamzo shumar rabahi. Even that is going to be huge. Tulo makabel inish tzara ilave lecharchila el b'damim merubim. Because, same point again, a person simply will not accept pain upon themselves. Inish is a person, tzara is pain, ilave is on themselves. They're not going to do it lecharchila. They're not going to do it if they have any other option. They're not going to do it initially, except for a lot of money. But the case of your limb being declared against by the malchut, that's already been done, and in the case of someone being hurt, well, that's already happened. Hilkach shamin lahakel, kama adam rotze liten sheikta yado b'sam, haktuva l'malchut l'kot'a b'sayif. So therefore, we evaluate how much we make the evaluation lenient, lahakel. We make it as lenient as possible. How much a person would want to get to have their hand cut off painlessly instead of painfully. And that around that sum of money is what we take from the injurer and give to the injured. So he interprets this very clearly as being a lenient approach to this kind of payment. But when it comes to the kind of tsar described in the Mishnah, which is tsar shelo b'makom nezek, tsar without pain, it's impossible. It's impossible to evaluate it in any other way, other than how much a person like this would want to get in order to have this much pain inflicted. The Haid Parich b'Gemara, and the question that's asked in the Gemara, Parich is asked. The question that's asked in the Gemara, litol liten mi ba'ilei. The Gemara asks, what do you mean to take? It's how much they would give. Doesn't that seem like a mistake? It's not how much the person would take, it's how much they would give to not have to undergo that pain. Amilta de avua de Shmuel Parich. So at first it seems like the Gemara is asking this question about what Avua de Shmuel said. Avua de Shmuel used the language of litol, and the Gemara is saying, no, it should really be liten. Inami mimilta de Avua de Shmuel, shamina nami perish matnitin. Alternatively, inami, from the words of Shmuel, of Avua de Shmuel, we hear also, or we learn also, that which the Mishnah explained. Because if you remember, the Mishnah also uses this language. Uleolam ein shamin kama adam rotze litol uletzaer, techol asher la'adam yiten ba'ad nafsho, ve'ein erech l'shumazo. And it's for sure the case that you can't really figure out how much a person would want to get in order to have pain inflicted, because a person will give all of what he has. A person will give all his wealth, and there's no value that can be placed on that kind of sum, on that kind of evaluation. Ella shamin misha chayav l'malchut lechavto b'shipur al tzipornav kama hanoten shelo yasu lo tzar zeh. So rather, you have to kind of evaluate someone who's obligated to the authorities in some way to be burned on his nail, right? A place where there's not going to be damage, but there's just going to be pain. How much that person would give to not have to undergo that pain. V'shumazo kala lahotzi mamon lihinatzel mitzar. And that's sort of a lesser payment. It's a lesser evaluation, because we're just going to take money to be saved from pain. That's a more lenient standard. Right? You'll pay a certain amount to avoid pain, and you could actually imagine paying that amount, as opposed to someone who says to you, well, how much would I have to pay you to undergo this pain? You'll never really settle on an amount high enough. Ve'avur de Shmuel milta de psika nakat, nezek b'makom tsar. So Avur de Shmuel is talking about something that was already decided, nezek in a place of tsar, right? Having both damage and tsar. De shamin lahakel, that we evaluate leniently. Again, he's already said this. Bein sayif l'sam. This is just a repetition of the Gemara. Umine shaminan dehu hadin demikilim af shelo b'makom nezek. And from this we learn that we are lenient even in a place, or even in a situation, where there is no nezek. And now it makes sense, the fact that the Gemara asks this question about why does it say to take when it should say to give. Zekai nami amat nitin, that this applies also to our Mishnah. V'tzar yalfinan mikiviyah tachet kiviyah. In other words, I'm going to bracket this last part for a second about tsar, but now the Rosh explains it makes sense when our Gemara settles on the fact that it should say liten and not litol. It's talking about our Mishnah also. Even in the case, although the Rosh goes back and forth at first, but he winds up saying even in the case where you don't give, where you don't get damaged, it's just pain. Even in that case, all you can really fairly ask of a person is that they figure out how much they would pay to avoid pain. Otherwise, it's going to be such a huge sum of money if you're going to really ask someone how much they would pay to undergo pain. And so when the Mishnah corrects it, when the Gemara, corrects it from litol to liten, it's talking not just about the answer of Avodah Shmuel, but also about the Mishnah itself. And finally, this last phrase, V'tzar yalfinan mikiviyah tachet kiviyah, I just want you to know that this exists, that in the Gemara, in a piece that we skipped, the Gemara does discuss tsar shelo b'makom nezek. And the Gemara says, tsar shelo b'makom nezek mishtalem. Mantana, who teaches the fact that you have to pay for tsar, even when there's no damage done. Amar Rava ben Azai. And Rava says this is ben Azai. This is the opinion of Ben Azai. D'Tanya, as we learn in the Braita, Rebbe Omer kiviyah ne'emra tchila, Ben Azai Omer chabura ne'emra tchila. And this is in the pasuk that says, right, same pasuk we've been working with for a while, that talks about a bruise for a bruise and an eye for an eye, right? So it starts out a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, and a bruise for a bruise. And Ben Azai is arguing, as the Gemara makes it clear, Ben Azai savar, Ben Azai holds that when it says a burn, kiviyah de'itbe chabura mashma, you would think that that means a burn that includes a wound. Katav rachmana chabura, but then the Torah also says chabura tachet chabura, legaluya ela kiviyah deleit be chabura, to teach us that when it says burn, it means even a burn without a wound. In other words, this repetitious language in the pasuk, kiviyah tachet kiviyah, chabura tachet chabura, or petza tachet petza, chabura tachet chabura, it uses all these phrases that could in theory mean the same thing. And Ben Azai argues that the fact that it uses these phrases that could mean the same thing, it's coming to teach you that a burn, you have to pay for a burn, even though it only caused pain and it didn't actually cause any physical damage. So again, the tsar payment applies whether or not there's nezek, and the Rambam and the Rosh are discussing different ways of viewing and thinking about this tsar payment. We'll stop there.